Let's start with the stock price rally. It has been remarkable. Is it rational? What do you make of the moves in the stocks and whether it's got further to run?
Thank you for the question and thank you for having me. It's clear that it's been a crazy week from Monday on and following, I think, the last couple of weeks of discussions across Europe about stepping up on defense, stepping up on general spending to defend ourselves, has taken, of course, a positive turn for pretty much all stocks linked to defense. And Eutelsat saw that effect very strongly this week after the discussions last week around the Starlink potential pullout of Ukraine. Starlink has been there since the very early start of it and provided a lot of communication. And we are actually also, as Eutelsat, together with a German distributor, providing a lot of capacity to Ukraine. It is a key element of modern warfare to have strong communication capabilities from space. Now, SATCOMs has always been a military weapon, but with the low Earth constellation, it's even more key in terms of keeping communication open and actually providing intelligence to armed forces.
So have you had conversations with European leaders about replacing Starlink in Ukraine with OneWeb?
Yes, and they've intensified over the last couple of weeks. Until now, we have been together with Starlink there, but it's clear that everybody's asking us today, can you actually replace especially the very large number of terminals that Starlink has across Ukraine? And that's something we're looking very actively at, yes.
So what are the challenges? How do you get to that point? I believe Starlink has about 40,000 terminals in Ukraine. Right now, you have about a tenth of the number. How do you ramp up and how quickly for Ukraine?
Well, at Eutelsat, we actually have a multitude of terminal suppliers. We also have some stock that we're now, of course, looking at because that would be the faster to deploy to Ukraine, the stock that we have already, and setting priority to providing this to Ukraine. And then conversations with various terminal suppliers. We're lucky to have multiple, both of military grade, but also of more commercial grade. And Ukraine might, of course, need a mix of both. So that's something we're looking quite actively at.
Will it involve partners with other providers? Will it involve support, specific material support from European governments?
It would require, of course, financial support and potentially also logistic supports. We have a strong distributor already working with Ukraine, so we believe that they are be very strong to handle that. We do not, as Starlink, manufacture our own terminals. We do that through partners, Kymeta, Insta, Intellian. And that would be a conversation with all of these in order for them to potentially ramp up if we were to get up to the 40,000. We can get to at least a couple of thousands with the stock on hand, and that's what we're looking at in the very short term.
So on specifics, on that question, how many units do you have in Ukraine right now, and when do you get to that couple of thousand?
Now, we have a couple of thousands in Ukraine today. They're not all, I mean, some of them are, of course, needs to get on the network, but we're talking several tens of times of that if we were to replace all of the Starlink terminals.
And what's the realistic time frame to getting to 40,000?
40,000, that's probably a couple of months, but it's not years. But we could at least double or triple within weeks of time. That's mainly logistics to get it there.
Can you confirm that you've been in talks with the Italian government about potentially providing these services to that government instead of Starlink? They've turned cautious on Starlink.
It's clear that there's been a lot of discussions across newspapers around Italy and their approach with Starlink. What we know today in discussions we've been having with the Italian government is very clear that the Italians have realized the need for low Earth constellations. And they're evaluating the options for Italy. There's been studies on providing a constellation purely for the Italians. What's key around low Earth constellation is that it's just not valid for a single country. They circle the entire globe, and you need to start with at least 6 to 8 billion if you want to get that. And doing that for a single country doesn't make sense. So what makes a ton of sense is the collaboration. And as you know, we have the arose, which is a European secure constellation, where Italy is also a key part, Telespazio and Thales are key partners in that. But what do we do until IRIS² gets there? What we can do until IRIS² gets there is what the Italians are looking at. And we are in discussion with them because right now there are Starlink and us who have low Earth constellations in orbit. So the choice is not massive if you want to have capacity there. We've had a very long-standing collaboration with Telespazio and Italians. So we're already deep in those dialogues.
OK. You're closing in on a deal with Italy, it sounds like, Eva.
Well, we're in very good discussions with Italy, and we have always been in good collaboration with them, so we certainly hope that will continue.
OK, Ontario over in Canada, they have apparently scrapped their potential deal with Starlink. Are you in conversations with Ontario about replacing that service?
I think Canada is actually interesting because Telesat, which is the Canadian operator, has their own plans for Lightspeed. However, that will probably only get there in 27, 28, 29. Of course, we can help them provide something in the very short term to replace Starlink. So those are conversations we're also going to have with Telesat, which is while they're launching their own constellation, what do they do in the short term for it?